Scott, when it comes to the Middle East, I think we have never thought that Israel would attack Qatar, because Qatar is so special when it comes to the Middle East, because one of the most important bases of the United States is placed in Qatar. And they're one of the country is one of the main and major allies of the United States in the Middle East. It seems that the attack on part of Israelis, they thought that they can kill, assassinate the leaders of Hamas. Here is what the Israeli ambassador to the United States said on Fox News.
Terrorists are on notice. They are going to be eliminated.
Mr. Ambassador, understand that and the history. Obviously, Israel is under attack constantly. In this case, Qatar officials and Hamas leadership is saying that you did not get the targets you were seeking. They are obviously condemning this attack as attacking inside an allied country to the U.S. The U.S. here at the White House expressing concern that it did not advance the goals of the U.S. or Israel. And you have the Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia, with very pointed statements in condemnation. So did you get the targets you were seeking?
If we didn't get them this time, we'll get them the next time. Israel under Prime Minister Netanyahu is changing the face of the Middle East. We have degraded Hezbollah, we've degraded Hamas, the Houthis, and Iran, the head of the snake that's leading these proxies in an effort to destroy Israel. When we defeat these proxies of Iran, when we defeat Islamic extremism, and actually that will benefit our neighbors in the region who are moderate and want to live in a state of peace with us. So right now, we may be subject to a little bit of criticism. They'll get over it. And Israel is being changed for the better. The region is being changed for the better as we remove these enemies of peace and these enemies of Western civilization from their ability to implement terrorism.
I'm sure that Israel is changing the face of the Middle East, but I'm not sure that they're changing it somehow and benefiting from what's going on in the Middle East.
No, I mean, this is a statement by a war criminal who's speaking out in defense of a war crime. There's no other way to articulate what Israel did other than a war crime. It's a violation of international law. It's an assault on a sovereign nation. It's in violation of the United Nations Charter. In a real world, Qatar would go to the Security Council and seek to implement the international community obligation to come to the assistance of a nation under attack and get the Security Council to pass a Chapter 7 resolution authorizing sanctions or military response to constrain a rogue nation. And that's what Israel is in every way, shape, or form, a rogue nation. And we can't just view what happened here as a one-of in isolation. Understand that it's part and parcel of a pattern of behavior alluded to by the ambassador himself, which has Israel not just carrying out a surprise attack, again in violation of international law against Iran, but also assassinating the leadership of Hezbollah in Beirut, a sovereign nation, killing the leadership of Yemen, a sovereign nation, assassinations, and carrying out unprovoked attacks against other nations like for instance Syria. It also is taking place in the context of the overall Gaza conflict, where Israel is committing what everybody acknowledges, except maybe the Israelis themselves, is acts of genocide, war crimes on a daily basis of a magnitude that hasn't been seen since the Second World War. I mean, it's shocking that this man believes he can get away with this, but apparently Israel's going to get away with it because their mentor, their protector, their guardian, the United States, is going to do nothing. And if the United States does nothing, I can guarantee you that none of the Arab world will do anything. I mean, my God, these are the people who remain silent in the face of ongoing genocide against their fellow Arabs, the Palestinian people. You think they're going to jump to the defense of Qatar, a nation that, doesn't have great relations with the Gulf Arab states to begin with? So, you know, yeah, Israel's going to get away with it. But the idea that this somehow advances Israel's cause, no, this just digs a deeper hole for Israel. Israel will get away with it right now. But what's happening is Israel is degrading not Hamas, but itself. Israel is just doing yet another act that cements in the minds of the rest of the world the illegal reality of the Israeli state. And one day it'll all catch up with Israel. I don't know, where Mr. Leiter will be when that happens. I don't know if he'll be alive when that happens. But one day the state of Israel will cease to exist. And, what they just did against Hamas and Qatar will be one of the many bricks that will be built on the, monument that will be placed celebrating the demise, the defeat of this illegal entity known as the State of Israel.
There's some rumors that the Turkish intelligence somehow informed the Hamas leaders about the coming attack from Israel. What the Israeli Channel 12 reported that Israel attack on Hamas negotiations room in Doha failed because of the leaders had left to pray, leaving their phones behind. So it seems that in their mind, the only failure, the main reason was they left the room because they wanted to pray. But after all, Scott, looking at the way Hamas is negotiating, is in the process of negotiations. And I don't know how does Donald Trump and the administration in the United States want themselves to be seen in the Middle East. After all, you negotiate with Iranians and you send Israelis to assassinate them. You're talking in the process of negotiations because of the hostages. Donald Trump is putting tremendous pressure on the negotiations, and you let Israel attacking. They said that they knew that Israel wanted to attack Qatar and wanted to bomb Hamas leaders. How do you see the repercussions of what's going on in the Middle East?
It just further undermines and degrades the legitimacy, the authority, the credibility of the United States. I mean, who will ever trust us? Nobody in their right mind would trust the United States, not under Donald Trump's leadership, because there's already the precedent of Iran well established. But now we see this president. I just tell you right now, the story put out by the Trump administration, just a bald-faced lie, straight up lie. They knew, and they colluded with Israel. There's no way, literally no way, Israel could have taken, off 15 aircraft take off from Israeli bases, transit, Syrian airspace into Iraqi airspace, and then travel down the Persian Gulf towards Qatar, where the biggest military installation in the Middle East of the United States is located. This is an air base that has strategic assets deployed there on occasion. It's well defended, not just by point defense capabilities, but we have various resources in play in space and airborne that track incoming threats. And the idea that Israeli aircraft approached in a stealthy manner and released 6 missiles, at least 6, that impacted targets inside Doha, close to the American Al Udeid base, and America didn't know about it? No. I mean, the whole purpose of our defense there is to prevent this very sort of thing happening. And, to believe Donald Trump is to believe that America is defenseless. No. Israel cannot fly over Syria and Iraqi airspace without America detecting it. Not only that, but if Israel doesn't coordinate with the strike, any aircraft entering into these air defense zones that are guarded by American air power. Remember, we have aircraft constantly flying through Iraqi airspace to carry out missions inside Iraq and inside Syria. We use IFF, identify friend foe, to deconflict. Israel can't enter this airspace without deconfliction, or else they will be identified as hostile targets and engaged by the United States automatically. So the idea that Israel was able to sneak through Syria, sneak through Iraqi airspace, and approach Qatar without America knowing about it until the last minute. And then we go, oh dear. And then they fire 6 missiles that, according to the Qatari defense minister or prime minister, foreign minister, were not detected. It's absurd. Maybe the Qataris didn't detect it. We detected it. This is what we do. The story just falls apart, especially when you see that the commander, the admiral in command of U.S. Central Command visited Israel in the days leading up to this attack. I'm just here to tell you that they discussed this attack. They discussed, because the visit coincided with Donald Trump's ceasefire offer to Hamas. And the Hamas leadership, many of them were in Turkey, and they flew from Turkey to Qatar at the invitation of the Qatar leadership, of the Crown Prince, and then Israel launches this attack. You're saying that America didn't know about this, that Donald Trump didn't find about it until his military said, "Oops, we got Israeli aircraft on the radar. What do we do?" No, it's a lie, a straight up lie. Why? Because Trump got caught out. And you remember with Iran how he was bragging when the attack first took place. I'm the one that did this. I'm the one that told them 60 days, and it's now the 61st day, and their leadership is gone, and I'm the one who helped plan this, and oops, their leadership isn't gone, and they're still alive and they're resisting. I didn't have anything to do with this. No, it's all a big mistake. No, I didn't want this to happen. Of course I did. I mean, he just covered himself with crap on that one. And so this time they've coordinated. I mean, look how Israel never takes credit for anything, ever. And suddenly the Israeli prime minister is going, I did it. I carried out this massive war crime. I alone am responsible for every aspect of this. And America had nothing to do with it. Nothing whatsoever. Right, Donald? No, I didn't have anything to do with this. No, not me. No way. I'm mad at you. I'm mad at you, Bibi. I'm really angry at you. Attacking an ally of America is bad. Oh, but killing Hamas is good. So come on, the stupidity of this. Anybody who believes anything coming out of the Trump administration right now, I got a bridge in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you at a steep discount.
I think the negative sign of what the Israeli ambassador said, that they're not going to put in a stop to these sort of activities. They're going to bomb again. It seems that they want to bomb Qatar again, because nobody's offering that this was the final attack and we couldn't achieve it. That's why he said we failed, but we're going to continue on the same path to get them, to hit them, to assassinate them. How is that going to, how the United States would convince the government in Qatar, and every time Israel decides to attack them, it's not just about Syria, it's not about Lebanon, they're attacking each and every day, it's about Qatar. I don't know if they can do this to Qatar. They can do this Saudi Arabia, UAE, all these countries in the region.
Yeah. How about Turkey? I mean, I'd love to see Erdogan step up to the plate right now and say, we're hosting the Hamas delegations right here in Ankara, right next to my presidential palace. I dare you to bomb me, Israel. I dare you. Step up and do that. Take control of this situation. Qatar clearly has no guts, none. They're outraged, but they're not outraged, because I believe that they were tipped off that this was going to happen as well. There's no way Qatar didn't know about this, because their response is so. I was going to say something that was going to get us both in trouble, so I won't say it. But so lacking in testosterone. These aren't real men. These are the opposite of that, because this isn't how real men behave. Their sovereignty was attacked, literally. I mean, there is no sovereignty. What Israel basically says, we can attack you anytime we want to. Now, the idea that Israel said that to the United States is absurd in the extreme. Israel would never have launched this attack without American permission, without American knowledge. That's an absolute. I mean, just look how angry Donald Trump gets at the slightest political slight from Benjamin Netanyahu. His massive ego wouldn't put up with this. So you're telling me that the man with the biggest ego in the world, the biggest narcissist in the world, is going to sit back and let Benjamin Netanyahu shame him like this? No, not at all. Not at all. But Qatar is finished. It's finished as a sovereign state. And so is the rest of the Arab world, to be honest. Because what Israel just did is said, I can get anybody. I can get Saudi Arabia. I can get Kuwait. I can get anybody I want, anytime I want. I'll strike them. There's not a damn thing any of you can do about it. Which is where Turkey needs to take control. Already Hamas has, a safe haven, so to speak, in Turkey. And Turkey needs to take over control of the negotiations. They need to tell Qatar that you're done. You're finished. You can't be trusted. And that Hamas has a safe place here in Turkey. And we will provide a safe zone, and we dare Israel to attack because, and Erdogan should say it straight up: if Israeli aircraft attack Turkey, it's a state of war immediately. And Turkey will immediately respond with the full force available to it. And Israel can't take on Turkey; they just can't do it. But who else is going to step up to do anything? I don't even know if Erdogan's going to do that because it's all fake. We're cutting off economic relations with Turkey or with Israel, except for the oil that we'll continue to sell through a variety of means. We're shutting down all air traffic between Israel and Turkey, except for the airplanes that we need to fly there because it's inconvenient to cut off all air transport. I mean, Erdogan says one thing, does another. But it's interesting what you say about the Turkish intelligence reports. Let me give you some insight into what I used to know about Israeli operations. To carry out an attack of this nature with all of the political risk that is entailed in this, Israel's not going to take chances. So there were assets on the ground in Doha. Look, Israel's had 24 hours to get them out of there, so I can talk about this now. There were assets on the ground in Doha that had positive identification of the targets and positive knowledge of the location of the targets, that the targets were positively located in the impact zone when the order was given to fire the missiles, that this wasn't guesswork on the part of Israel. And so it sounds to me like there was knowledge about how Israel was tracking these targets through the use of telephones, and that the Turks gave them a heads up, get out of there, leave your phones, and get the hell out of there. And it was done quickly because family members died. I mean, they didn't get everybody out. This was a rapid evacuation. Qatari security personnel were killed, my understanding, at least one. So this was something done at the last minute. I believe that Turkey has a rather large military presence in Qatar, that there's a Turkish military installation with a Turkish military unit and Turkish intelligence as well. And that Turkey does have a responsibility for Hamas. It's an unspoken responsibility, but I believe that Turkey probably deployed some counterintelligence assets to safeguard Hamas, and because they were leaving Turkish territory. And I think that the Turks were able to provide some sort of tip-off to them. And so, hooray for the Turks. But, again, it's an act of war, what happened here. We can't trivialize it. Israel has no inherent right to assassinate Hamas leadership. None whatsoever, especially when the United States, working with the Qatari government, offer up a what's the equivalent of a flag of truce for negotiations. It becomes an act of perfidy, which is a war crime, by the way. You're not allowed to ride out with the white flag and lure people in and then kill them. And that's what was attempted here. But again, I just reiterate the point that's been made over and over again. Israel is an illegal entity that carries out war crimes on a daily basis, and nothing they do of a criminal nature should ever shock anybody.
I think most of us, when we talk about Erdogan. We say that he's phony, he's not doing anything. But the situation that is happening in Syria is so much serious, Scott. Israelis are attacking the regions that are somehow connected to the Turkey and the Turkish government, Turkish military. This is not something, it seems to me, something that we don't hear much about it, but it's something happening that maybe explodes at any moment. Something big happens between the two, and Israelis were afraid of Turkey. So far they were talking, the Israeli media was talking about Turkey as the main enemy, even greater enemy than Iran. They see the threat, they see the confrontation that they're facing with Turkey. How do you see that front? How do you see the way that Turkey is somehow trying to deal with the situation, with the problem that they're facing in Syria?
Well, I mean, Turkey helped create this problem. They, they were been working hand in glove with the United States, with Qatar and others, to bring down the regime of Bashar al-Assad, and they succeeded. But sometimes you have to be aware of what you ask for, because sometimes you get it. And I don't think anybody expected Assad to fall as rapidly as he did. There was no plan for success, and to have Jolani suddenly emerge as the president of Syria. The Turks had a whole Syrian government in exile that was supposed to take control, but they lost control of the narrative, and Jolani's now the guy. So Turkey's been playing catch up ever since. Turkey has the issue of the Kurds that it has to work with. They're working with the United States on how to manage that issue. They continue to work on managing their own Jolani problem. I mean, Idlib province is by all measures a Turkish province, and it was meant to be a temporary holding ground for these Islamists, but now these Islamists have become empowered. They've taken over Syria. Now Turkey has to deal with this reality. How does Turkey deal with the millions of Syrian refugees that are a huge political problem for Erdogan? How do you return those refugees to Syria in the face of the atrocities that are currently taking place? They have to manage the Russia issue. Russia still has bases in Syria, and still being sorted out what role, if any, Russia will have in the future of Syria. And, the United States has to be consulted in all of this. And then you have Israel. And Israel's just basically doing whatever it wants to do right now in Syria. They're writing their own playbook, and nobody's able to or willing to stand up to them. The danger comes when there's no longer a buffer between Israel and Turkey. The danger comes when there is direct connectivity between the Turkish military and the Israeli military, because now you will have force-on-force contact, and both sides will escalate to defend. And you could see very well a major war break out between Israel and Turkey. I think right now the Turkish goal is to prevent that. Keep in mind that Turkey has a larger strategic plan that involves turning Turkey into a regional energy hub. And a key aspect of their planning for this was incorporating the massive gas fields that exist off the coast of Israel to capture this gas and bring it to the hub and use it as a vehicle of empowerment for Turkey, to help Turkey, set, the price and, become the source of energy for not just Southern Europe, but all of the region. Having a decisive split with Israel would be very disruptive to that. Having a war with Israel would be disastrous to that. And so, I think what we see with Turkey is that Israel knows and understands it can get away with a lot, because it recognizes that Turkey's long-term ambitions aren't centered on Syria per se, but centered on the region. In that right now, Israel has a significant latitude to do just about what it wants in southern Syria without fear of any major Turkish involvement. Erdogan will just have to sit there and eat his tie because there's nothing he can do about it, nothing he's willing to do about it. Because even though Turkey does have the ability to stand up to Israel, the price Turkey will pay in the long term in terms of the disruption and perhaps termination of their goals of being a regional energy hub would be devastating to Turkey's long-term political, economic, and geopolitical posturing.
Do you see any sort of alternative movement in Israel to change the course?